What if the biggest car company on Earth told you that going electric might actually make climate change worse? That's not a bad joke or a twisted parody. It's the real claim being pushed by Toyota's top leadership. In a bizarre twist that has stunned the EV world and raised eyebrows across the auto industry, Toyota's former CEO and now chairman, Akio Toyoda, has gone on record claiming that 9 million electric vehicles would actually make global emissions worse than 27 million hybrids. And if that sounds unbelievable, just listen to what he said himself.
900万台のベブを作ったと同じ効果があるんですが、この日本で900万台作ると CO2 は増えます。
So what I want to say is that the hybrids that we made and sold had the same impact as 9 million BEVs out in the road. But if we were to make 9 million BEVs in this country, it would have actually increased the CO2 emission, not reduced.
That's not some offhand comment or a mistranslation. That was a polished public statement in an official interview, published directly through Toyota's own PR channel, the Toyota Times. Rather than being met with applause, it was met with disbelief, mockery, and even outrage. Not just from EV advocates, but from major global publications, including those traditionally skeptical of electric vehicles. In fact, some outlets openly laughed at Toyota's logic, calling it outdated, misleading, and dangerously uninformed. But it doesn't stop there, because behind that one statement lies a much bigger story. A story about fear, control, misinformation, and the battle for the future of transportation. And if you think Toyota is just confused or conservative, think again. They're not just resisting the EV revolution, they're actively working against it. Akio Toyoda isn't just the former CEO of Toyota, he's the grandson of the company's founder and still holds immense power as chairman. So when he speaks, the auto world listens. But recently, what they've heard has left many stunned. In a polished interview with Automotive News, later reprinted on Toyota's own media channel, Toyota made a claim that sounds more like conspiracy than corporate policy. He said that if Toyota had produced 9 million electric vehicles in Japan, the environmental impact would have been worse than producing 27 million hybrids. That statement alone would be enough to raise eyebrows. But then came the justification. He claimed that because Japan relies heavily on thermal power plants, producing and charging EVs, there would increase carbon emissions, not reduce them. According to him, Toyota's decision to prioritize hybrids over full battery electric vehicles was not a step backward, but a heroic, environmentally responsible move. But here's the issue. Nearly every point in his argument has already been thoroughly debunked. First, let's talk logic. If EVs are so harmful in Japan because of coal-powered electricity, then what about every other country? What about Norway, where EVs dominate and the grid is almost entirely powered by clean energy? Or California, where rooftop solar and renewables are rapidly taking over? Toyota's argument doesn't even attempt to acknowledge the global shift in clean electricity or the simple fact that EV emissions depend on where they're charged, not where they're built. And even within Japan, his claim ignores how quickly grids are evolving. According to a 2025 report from Carbon Brief, more than 60 countries, including Japan, have cut coal plant plans dramatically, many eliminating coal altogether within the last 5 years. So to suggest that Japan will remain stuck in a high-emissions energy cycle forever is either dishonest or embarrassingly uninformed. But the contradictions don't stop there. In the same interview, Toyota actually boasted that Toyota's hybrids had already achieved the same environmental benefits as 9 million EVs, only to turn around and argue that building 9 million actual EVs would be disastrous. It's like saying you've already eaten 100 apples, but if you actually did, you'd die. Even publications that usually avoid taking sides on the EV debate couldn't help but point out the contradiction. The truth? Toyota is trying to shape the narrative, not with facts, but with fear. And what they're hoping is that you'll listen and stop asking questions. Let's break down the actual data. According to multiple life cycle studies, the average electric vehicle generates significantly fewer carbon emissions over its lifetime than a hybrid or gasoline-powered car, even when charged on a coal-heavy grid. Electric vehicles are incredibly efficient. While internal combustion engines waste up to 70% of the fuel they burn as heat, EVs convert over 90% of the energy from the grid into actual movement. So even if the electricity comes from fossil fuels, the net emissions are lower. And that's not even considering rooftop solar or wind power. And what about the batteries? Toyota argues that mining and manufacturing EV batteries is too carbon intensive. But this ignores one critical fact. EV batteries last a long time. The average EV battery today lasts over 500,000 kilometers, and they're getting better every year. Plus, EV batteries aren't single-use. Even when they degrade below automotive standards, they're repurposed for stationary storage, like powering airports or buildings. That's not speculation. The airport in Rome already uses hundreds of second-life Nissan Leaf batteries to store energy. So this idea that EV batteries are wasteful or short-lived, it's pure fiction. One of the most damaging and persistent lies about EVs is that they're dangerous fire hazards. A recent survey revealed that nearly half of respondents in the US, Australia, and Europe believe EVs are more likely to catch fire than gas-powered cars. But the reality? That's simply not true. Insurance and fire data shows that EVs are less likely to catch fire per mile driven than traditional vehicles. Gasoline is highly flammable, and engine fires in internal combustion cars are far more common than EV battery incidents. But that doesn't matter to companies like Toyota, who benefit from fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When you repeat a myth long enough, people start to believe it, and Toyota is well aware of that. One of the most powerful truths Toyota doesn't want to talk about is this. Lithium, nickel, cobalt, these materials don't get used up. Once they're mined, they can be recycled over and over. EV batteries aren't just recyclable, they're economically valuable. As battery supply chains mature, nearly every component will be reused in next-gen packs or repurposed for energy storage. That's already happening across Europe and Asia. And the second-life battery market? It's exploding. From powering warehouses to airports to entire neighborhoods, EV batteries are giving fossil fuels a run for their money, long after they leave the car. This isn't just about beliefs, it's about influence. Toyota has spent billions lobbying against EV mandates around the world, often outspending even fossil fuel companies. Their strategy is clear: delay, deflect, and distract. By pushing hybrids as a good enough solution, they stall regulations that would require full electrification. And by casting doubt on battery tech, they muddy the waters just enough to make policymakers hesitate. In the background, Toyota continues pushing for hydrogen cars, a technology that remains far more expensive, less efficient, and barely scalable for personal use. Why? Because it delays the EV transition just a little longer and keeps hybrids relevant. While Toyota warns the world about battery pollution, their own hybrids rely on nickel metal hydride batteries, a technology that requires large amounts of high-grade nickel. And where does a lot of that nickel come from? Indonesia, one of the most environmentally destructive mining regions on Earth. So while Toyota paints EVs as dirty and dangerous, they continue to mass-produce hybrids using high-nickel batteries that contribute to ecological devastation abroad. In contrast, companies like BYD are moving to lithium iron phosphate LFP batteries, which don't use nickel or cobalt. Toyota even uses these in some EVs it co-develops in China. But for most of its lineup, they stick to the old formula, the one that's quietly doing damage. Here's the truth. Toyota knows exactly what it's doing. Their messaging isn't a mistake. It's calculated, and it works. Millions of loyal Toyota customers have bought into the myth that hybrids are just as good as EVs, or even better. They repeat the talking points, spread the claims, and defend the brand online. It's a textbook case of brand loyalty mixed with cognitive bias. Once you buy into a system, it's hard to admit it might be flawed. Toyota is using that psychology to delay the future, just long enough to protect its market share. But the facts are out there, and as more people wake up to the truth, the harder it will be for Toyota to keep hiding behind greenwashed half measures. The future is electric, and no amount of PR spin can stop that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.